This is another picture that I shot at Lake Carl Blackwell after that really bad freeze that we had in February of 2021. And this, just like last week's photo, is a scene that you usually don't see in Oklahoma. Even in the dead of winter, it just doesn't get this cold to freeze an entire lake. This was out at one of the peninsulas on Lake Carl Blackwell. So Lake Carl Blackwell is a man-made lake. And in this lake, they have several peninsulas or water breaks or wave breaks that they have built so that in certain inlets, the waves aren't quite as bad and it doesn't disturb the docks and the homes or the cabins on the side of the lake as much. And we walked out on one of these with our kids. Again, we did not, if you listen to last week's commentary, we didn't go on the lake at all because there was no telling where it was thick and where it was not. But along this peninsula, I saw this scene here, and I don't know what happened here. This is a ton of ice that has accumulated around some sort of plant, a dead plant, or a plant that's gone dormant for the winter. And the ice was so thick on this thing. It was crazy. It looked like it looked like an ice plant, like ice had sprouted up from the ground, like an aloe plant or something. Only it had just formed around the branches of this shrub or bush or whatever it was, and it just made this really cool looking, I don't know, almost like a sculpture that I don't think I've ever seen something like this before. It was almost like icicles sticking up from the ground, and they all formed around these branches. I thought at first like maybe this just somehow formed naturally. That wasn't the case. It was really cool to see. And so I wanted to get a picture of this, but in some sort of context that gave it a little broader sense for the viewer. So I decided to put the lake in the background. And just like last week's photo, it was really tricky to shoot this because I had to use live view on my camera. I had to get low to the ground, and I couldn't lay on the ground. Well, I didn't want to lay on the ground to use the optical viewfinder. So I was using live view to compose this shot. And I got this here, which I'm mostly happy with. What I don't like is that I shot it at aperture f4, and I'm not sure why. And that left the tree line in the background just a little out of focus. And I don't like that. I wish the whole thing was sharp. I should have stopped down to f8 or f11. There is no reason not to. There is a ton of light. In fact, just like last week's, I had to underexpose by one stop. And it is what it is. I think you get a sense of what's going on here. It would have been cool to have a nice wide angle lens, but all I had was a crop sensor camera and a 50mm lens, and you just got to make do with what you have. And so that's what I did. You definitely get a sense of a frozen lake. At least I hope you think it's a lake. It is a lake. I hope it looks like a lake. I guess you could argue that maybe it looks like a field, but it gives you a sense of what was happening here. It's a totally frozen lake, and in the way distance, there's this shoreline or this tree line. And in the foreground, there's this weird ice thing. Incidentally, the tint of this is kind of yellowish, and that's exactly how it appeared. It didn't look like crystal clear snow or ice or anything. It had this yellowish tint to it, and I think that's just because the water was had that tint as well. And so maybe there was like heavy winds that washed water up onto the shore and ended up freezing around this plant. I'm not sure how this okay, so I have no idea how this thing actually happened. You can hear me conjecturing a lot throughout this entire commentary, but whatever made this happen, it was really cool.